We're going to open this meeting tonight at time, I got my time, 6:32.
All right, so you know we have this bet on how long this is gonna take, right?
Yeah.
Savory's already got a cut me saying he's gonna make it go longer.
Okay. What? So, so let us open this meeting at 6:32. We're here in accordance with the provisions of MGL Chapter 38, 20B. It's July 8th, 2025, and we're at the meeting room 4. We're not going to have a very long meeting, I don't think. But anyway, the reorganization of the board will be postponed until next meeting, simply because we don't have a full board. One of our members is not able to be present tonight, so we really need a full board for this. So we'll go on to number 2. Discussion with Tom Bott, he's the town planner, and of course the committee will participate. The first, we have 4 questions for you, Tom, some of which we have earlier discussed. I think it's only appropriate that we'll take one question and then ask you to give us a narrative about what we're trying to accomplish here, or ask us first, and then we'll go back and open it up to each one of us for questions and answers. So the first question is, we had a very long meeting, last meeting, June 10th. I didn't know if the group here had any open questions. I had about 2 of them, because you gave us an opening that you had met with MIPA, not MIPA, but with DHCD, and we talked about minor changes versus major changes. And what caught my eye was that Jennifer Hughes from excuse me, from I think she's MIPA. MIPA. Oh. She says that the project also required several other state agency actions, including an access permit from MassDOT 1. 2, she talked, another permit was groundwater discharge permit. 3, drinking water distribution modification permit, that caught my eye. And 4, a corrective action design permit from Mass DEP. You gave us a narrative, it was kind of quick. I just want to be a little more familiar, and I believe these all came about because of Hillwood, who has now left, but yet these permits are outstanding and have to be fulfilled by Route 44. I guess that's my question.
Yes, Madam Chair. I'm Tom Bott. I'm the town planner here in Cranberry Land, USA. As we talked about, I'm familiar with what 3 of these 4 are. So the access permit from Mass DOT is essentially to allow a large-scale development access onto Massachusetts roads, it's essentially a curb cut from MassDOT. But the size of the development requires them to acquire this permit through Mass DOT. It'll also invoke some of the things that were in the final environmental impact report. So you may recall there are thresholds depending on how many trips per day come out of the industrial park, where they have to provide mitigation to the town of Carver, whether it's a sidewalk or widening the roads or traffic lights and things like that. So that is the essence of the Mass DOT
Okay.
access permit.
Okay.
The groundwater discharge permit is typically something that comes from a wastewater treatment plant.
Oh, okay.
You get water, here in Carver we just let the poop stay in the ground, but in other places it goes to a wastewater treatment plant, and that is to allow them to discharge the treated effluent. It's typically a tertiary treatment plant, which allows drinking quality water to come out of the finished product, but that still has to be discharged into the ground, so they want to make sure that that water is
So are these guys gonna use like a septic system then?
Well, as envisioned previously, they would likely need a wastewater treatment plant, a package plant, like you'd have for a small subdivision or something like that. So
Okay, so does that fall under the Carver Water District too, or is that?
no, because that's waste, not
Okay.
drinking water.
No, I'm-
Yeah, so the groundwater discharge permit is you're discharging something into the groundwater. So you're gonna take that water that's treated and put it into giant leaching fields. Usually,
That's why I said it was like a septic system.
yeah, usually the
It's a leaching
sludge
field.
and the
Yeah.
solids are hauled off for fertilizers or other uses and things like that. But that liquid, like a giant septic system, is what goes into the leaching
Okay.
fields. And that's the groundwater discharge permit. It would typically be required for something of that scale.
Okay.
And then the last, a drinking water distribution modification permit, I would venture to say has to do with a municipal or a public water supply. So as I've learned since my time here in Carver, that if you have a water source that serves more than 25 people, it has to have a public water supply dedicated to that. And the difference between a public water supply and your own well for several people is just the reporting you have to do to DEP. So you've got this public water supply, and that you would have to make sure it complies. In the case of the subdivision that was approved for the Green Business Park, one of the requirements per DEP is you can put the water lines in, but you cannot connect them to the current North Carver Water District facility
Yeah,
because
but-
it's offline.
Why was that, here you have these dedicated people coming in, and let's assume he's already built the roads and the structures and everything else, and it said, oh, you can't connect any of this. When do you start making those connections?
So if North Carver Water District was a functioning physical entity, if they were able to create and produce water, that wouldn't have been a condition.
Oh.
Because DEP was saying this plant doesn't function anymore and is offline.
Oh,
They
okay.
said you cannot connect the pipes to the water system.
Okay.
So at some point, if North Carver Water District becomes, a functioning plant again, then they'll be able to make that connection. In the absence of that, they would have to make other means.
Okay.
Because while in the south, people do economic development projects where the county, the municipality, the state, whatever, builds an entire industrial park with all this infrastructure in place, in Massachusetts, it's developers' responsibility to provide that infrastructure. Whether it's through the MBTA zoning bylaw or any kind of development that you're gonna do, the developer has to build the roads, the drainage, the sewage, and all that sort of stuff. So those are the permits that he has to get. And, if they want to move this project along, because of the lead time that those typically take working with the state agency, it's prudent to get started early rather than try to hustle through later on. So, and that's the points I made previously in other meetings, is that, if the developer has an approved subdivision plan, he also has an appealed subdivision plan of modification, he has an approved subdivision plan, he could be pursuing these permits now if that was what he wanted to do.
Interesting. And there's another, the last one is corrective action design permit from Mass DEP.
I do not know what that is.
Okay.
You mentioned, Tom, 25 people or more requires a public water?
Yes,
Is that employees or is that potential visitors?
that's people.
People.
Because I know when we were looking at doing, potentially exercising our 61A option for a piece of property on South Main Street, that's when it first came to my attention that if the town were to put out an RFP to do 6 dwelling units, those 6 dwelling units would be limited to X number of people, because after that threshold, they would have to have a municipal water supply.
Okay.
So that's what I understand from the Board of Health agent and through DEP, that,
Now, is that 25 people, that 25 person threshold for the entire development, or is it per lot?
I think after you get to that, if you've got a 25 people on property, I think that's what it is.
But if they sell each lot individually, does that?
Yeah, so someone could buy the lots and develop them, but in the absence of water for both fire protection and for domestic services, who's going to buy it, who's going to develop it if you don't have water?
Nobody is.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
And nobody wants to deal with taking care of it or anything. They just want their property taxes to do the whole thing.
Yeah, we had a developer looking at a property on Purchase Street recently, or Silver Street, and they pulled the plug because they had 19 units, and those 19 units put them over the threshold, and they looked at what it was going to cost them to run that municipal water supply, and they said, we're going to pull the plug right now and figure out what we're going to do. That was a year and a half ago. We haven't heard from them. Just because of the cost to maintain.
Yeah, it's basic real estate development. I mean, if it doesn't pencil, then you're not gonna do it.
It doesn't
so-
pencil out, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, those were my questions. Was there anything else that was caught your eye in the June 10th meeting that we had?
No, not really.
Okay. How about you, Jim?
No, I think, as you guys know, my whole thing is we need to kind of push this along, and it's stuck. So I think anything we can do to help push this along would be good for everybody.
Okay.
I do agree with Tom, though. I mean, they do have other avenues that they can keep going down with, your curb cuts and all that. That's not that huge of a deal to go get that stuff.
Yeah.
I understand, though, the other side, that it's money and it's time. And without having the development, there's only so far you're gonna go without, particularly water. I mean, if you can't run a sprinkler system and everything else, then there's only so far you're gonna go. But some of this other stuff they could be doing, it's not a huge amount of money.
That brings me to when I met with Tom and Glenn on the 2nd, that's my second question here. Brief update for that, I met with both of them, and I was talking to Glenn straight on, and just what you just mentioned now, about the time and what's going on, and the slowness of it all, and that what I'm saying is, and I said it to Glenn, it's very difficult for George to say to, and I think Savory said this before, you have to say to them, you don't want to say to them, I can give you water, you want to say to them, I will give you water.
And you wanna give them a date.
And he doesn't have access, and we know North Carver Water District is something he wants to get.
And I will say,
going.
from a real estate standpoint, you guys know I've been doing this for a long time, time kills deals. And that's kind of where we are. The longer this drags out and the longer the Water Commission drags this out, the worse it is for us. We're looking down the barrel of, I shouldn't say it that way, we're looking at about a $7 million tax increase to develop this land
Yeah.
for the town, with a very limited tax on our public services. And I've been on this board for, over a year now, and we're still talking about the same stuff.
Right.
And I can tell you from talking to real estate folks who know plenty more than I do, the invasion of Ukraine spiked interest rates and killed so many deals right at that point, with the spike in interest rates from essentially 0% interest to 7+. So many projects didn't pencil out at that.
Well, you can tell them to come talk to me, because I know lots of lenders that are
Okay.
doing it for a lot less.
Well, they've gotten over that hump now, but it shook up the market in a big way. And a lot of things just went away.
Like I said, I'm not gonna belabor this, but I think time kills deals, and this is what we're doing.
It seems to me that a lot of these things that Jennifer is asking for are kind of catch-22 things. How are you going to figure out the traffic when you don't know what's going to go there?
Yeah, and to that point, and the upshot of that meeting is there aren't any changes in our URP.
Okay,
There are no minor changes, there are no major changes. We're status quo.
okay,
We have a URP based upon developing, 1.7 million square foot of property, whatever it is.
Right.
And until something else comes along, then there's no changes to the URP.
okay. So you go with that for these permits?
Correct. At some point, if George builds the development and he starts to sell off lots, then the FEIR is still in effect. Based on the length of that, there may be another review of that at some point in the future. But presently, status quo is status quo. There's been no changes in acquisitions, there's been no changes in the methods to be used for those sort of things. So we're holding patterns we were before.
And I think part of that too is you kind of cross that bridge when you come to it. You develop it to a certain point that lives within the plan, and then if it gets beyond that, then you deal with it after that. And that's when you have to go back to the developer and say, you know what, this curb cut's not big enough, or whatever, we talk about 1,000 things, but
Okay.
I think you gotta kind of let it get it started, and then you go
that.
back and you go, okay, well, now you've exceeded the expectation, so now you gotta do this.
Just to put a shovel in the ground and go, kind of.
Yeah, I just think there's a certain point at which that, you can go back after the fact, but you've got a built-in, and correct me guys if I'm wrong, but you have a built-in capacity that's there.
Yes.
So you build to that capacity, and if it gets bigger than that, then you deal with it after the fact.
And the previous URP was based on a conceptual plan, but a pretty sizable conceptual plan. So if we got bigger than that, even better. But I think the expectation at this point is that there's nobody on the hook looking to build that particular development.
Well, there you go.
The conversations we had with George are looking at a lot of other smaller developers who might look at buying a lot here and a lot there.
Okay. All right.
Did you give the winning Powerball numbers? You're gonna have to leave us now.
I don't.
Well, that's tomorrow night.
It's tomorrow.
236 million.
Really? Oh, wow, I think I'll sign up.
I stopped and got
So
gas
Joanna,
today.
you were gonna talk about July 2nd? You were gonna,
Yes, I was in a meeting and I asked, I wrote quite a lengthy email to Tom. And I said that all these people, and I think you were on my first email, right? That I had sent.
I believe so, yeah.
And I said that all these other people are welcome to attend as well, and of course Glenn came. And I was glad that he came because I had those more specific questions for the North Carver Water District. And the things I was like saying to Glenn is that, the last meeting we had, which was June 10th, right?
Mhm.
And so you had said to Glenn when he had made comments about Middleborough, long-term Middleborough contracts. And I use what you said, that you just can't if you're trying to sell something and bring people in and attract them, you can't say can, you will say I will get you the water, right?
Right.
And so that's what we need to do. The other thing too is, Jim, what you had said, and I said the same thing back to Glenn. You had said that, he made a comment how he thought that maybe North Carver Water District, that the Route 44 would lease the North Carver Water District.
Mhm.
And you said, well, a developer really doesn't want to lease it, they don't want to.
No.
Well, I thought more about that, and I thought better. And I thought that, yes, I think that would be maybe something to pose to George, because if he leases it, say 9 months go by, right? Of course, he's in court now, right? It's probably another 9 months, it's probably gonna be a join with the state. But let's assume that this state makes a decision on bringing that North Carver Water District into the hands of the select board. And they're going to manage it. Well, when they manage it, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, they have to go through DEP, and there's a lot of hoops and whatever. That's one thing. That's probably one set of state laws. But the other thing that the town is involved in, you have to go through procurement, bidding processes, and that can be time consuming and so forth. But George could do that easier, and he could get it cheaper.
If you could tell him at the end of that process that he would turn it over to the town, he might be interested in that. I can tell you that I bought fire trucks in places. I've done a lot of stuff. But as a real estate developer, after the fact, you want the city services. Nobody wants to deal with it after that.
So, okay, so maybe there's a 50-50 deal here. Tom,
I've never actually talked to George, don't get me wrong. I'd be happy to talk to him.
Well, yeah.
But I'm just saying that at the end of the day, as a real estate developer, you don't want to provide these services for people. You want the town to provide them, and that's why you pay, frankly, a boatload of real estate taxes, and you don't really use city services other than fire and police for the most part, and in this case, water.
That's why developers build roads and turn them over to the town as public works.
Exactly.
They build them, they don't want to maintain them.
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's exactly, like, developers will build everything you want if it pencils, but then after the fact, you need to deal with it. They want you to plow the road, they want you to provide the water, the sewer, the whole 9 yards.
Standard operating procedure.
And the way that you know, they look at it as they pay a lot of money in taxes and don't really require any services. And that's a fair deal, in my opinion. Again, you know, I'm a real estate developer, you know, this is who I am. And that's a fair deal, in my opinion.
So the other part of that I brought up is Constantine, I keep saying that's not his name, but the only one I know, that he thinks, or we only know, I thought we only had, what, 27 acres? You can reveal what you told us, right? The reports that he asked conservation to fill out so he could find out how much land he actually had.
Oh, the guy behind the gas station?
Yeah, the Barton Memorials.
Yeah, they marked the wetlands and they asked the Conservation Commission to do an RDA, a determination of applicability. And we went out and looked at what was marked as wetlands, and we agreed with what the wetland scientist said, and most of that property is wet.
So he's got about, you said 6, so all he's got is about 6 acres.
He's got
So
pretty
you
much the
know
land
he
behind.
wants that water, he doesn't want to dig a well. If he digs wells, it's going to be a 150-foot radius that he's got to eliminate. That's a hell of a lot
Well,
area.
no, we generally, for a well, we would allow for work in the wetland zone.
So, but
For a
as
well?
a developer, wouldn't you want the water, the town water?
I
to
would
be
prefer
a
actually
well?
not to have a well at all.
The town?
Right.
You
I
want-
would prefer to have town water.
Yeah, okay, all right.
I would
But I'm
also
definitely
suggest, just
saying-
for a moment, that when I worked on the expansion at Natick Mall, Wonder Bread had a 24-acre parcel, and only really 15 of it was developable. So, you know, that's all I'm saying. It's not uncommon to look at something like that and be like, all right, well, this just kind of goes like that, and you remediate around it and all that kind of stuff. But as far as city services, no, you don't want to deal with wells.
Yeah, your money's better
Maybe for a
spent on
sprinkler
bit-
system,
Your
but
money's better spent on fixing somebody else's problem than creating your own infrastructure you gotta maintain.
yeah. And again, the only thing I would do a well for was like a sprinkler system. Like that, yeah, sure. But I don't want, you know, to deal with my sprinkler system in the stores and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to deal with that. I want pressure and everything else. And I would prefer to pay the town that and my taxes and everything else.
So as I said to Glenn, there should be also some interest in talking to that developer, the one that now only has, as well known, 6 acres, and he more than likely wants to have the North Carver water, you know, up and running, and maybe he could go together with good old George. You know, we're also talking about a water tower for pressure. I mean, it just doesn't end.
This all comes down to, we have to provide water. And that is the basis, and we keep talking around this and talking around this, and Bob comes in here, and now he's suing us and all that kind of stuff. None of this is going anywhere until we provide water.
Right.
That's right. So,
Without restrictions.
Without restrictions, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
It's like, we gotta fix that water plant, make it work, whatever it is, a tower or whatever it is out there that makes it work for everything. Then that becomes a developable piece of land.
so now the town knows it's gonna cost millions. They don't have necessarily that budget. Now, wouldn't we get?
We now know a number to get that plant back online?
No, we don't.
Well, I wrote to Bob, and he said he had these videos, and I looked at
Do you
them.
believe Bob?
Yes, I did, because he's on the video. I believe what he said in front of on the video, the Area 58 video. On June 30th, which is now passed, I think I'm going ahead here, but on June 30th, which now has passed, they hired a contractor came in, and he is already contracted and signed. The video showed that Cara Dayhill, you know, she did all the certification. He started already, he's a distribution operator, number 1. Also, Bob and his group of people talked about, they were working to look at Middleborough. There's a engineering firm.
Yeah, but not to belabor the point, because it's not on the agenda, but a distribution operator distributes water that's already coming up out of the ground. There's not a thing to get water out of the ground to distribute functioning right now.
Yeah, but that's
So you may have a
deep.
distribution operator, but you've got to have a product to distribute, and until the plant gets fixed, you don't have anything to distribute.
Well, the DEP is suing the North Carver Water District.
So once again, we're getting a little in the weeds.
I guess
but-
so, but part of that, in that suit says, and that was on this video that I watched with Bob's North Carver Water District, is that they need to have a distribution operator, and they also have to have an
No,
engineer.
I agree with Tom.
An
If you
engineer.
can't get it out of the ground, who the hell cares who's gonna sell it to anybody?
Isn't the distribution operator now Middleborough?
No,
Yeah.
he hired an
Yeah, you're
outside
right.
guy. I don't know.
No, Savory's right. I mean, we're getting it from another town right now.
Yeah.
We need somebody to get it out of the ground and sell it to the people from Carver.
Okay.
That's
Well,
where it
then-
comes in. And I think that's the other thing, as a board, I think we should kind of focus on, how can we help this? We've been talking about this for a long time. How can we help this? Is there a letter we can write? Is there a board that we can go to? I couldn't make the last water district board because I have a job and it's hard to get there at 5 in the afternoon. Sorry.
That's one of the videos I watched, by the way.
Well,
So if we could jump forward to number 3, RDA to sell town-owned properties, because one of those
Yes,
ideas.
that's good.
So,
Yeah,
so one of those ideas Joanna had was like, how about we go back to our old thing where we take tax title properties and we sell them and we give the proceeds of the sales to the town. And the town can do what they like with it. The trouble with that old school system is Massachusetts general law has changed.
Well, Supreme Court
Yeah.
changed it.
So now, essentially, if the town takes a piece of property by eminent domain because of taxes, the property owner is due any excess equity in the property. So you take a piece of property valued at $250,000 because this person owned $40,000 and you sell that property, you get $40,000. That other person gets whatever equity was left in the property and has to be returned within 60 days. So our old school strategy of buying properties and selling them and taking that equity for public good is now off the table. And I have for you a letter from the Attorney General about not a letter, but basically the legislation that basically highlights that sort of stuff. So
And
that
to-
strategy you had done previously is just sort of off the table.
Okay, good. So I talked to Kathleen, our lawyer, and she said, go to
Go to
speak.
jail to not.
No. Go to speak with Kathy Kay, the treasurer, and ask her what are the properties specifically, and how is she or has acquired them. And she said, then call me back. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And I printed out, like Tom said, but it's the Supreme Court that this last year, this practice known as home equity was deemed a violation of the Fifth Amendment taking clause. The ruling protects homeowners from having their property seized and sold for unpaid taxes, with the government keeping the excess proceeds. So it's more than just Attorney General, it's way
Yeah,
up to the
it's the law.
Supreme Court, it's a law.
But I think, again, if we're looking at the way to fund this, the tax dollars that will come out of that development will more than fund what we're talking about doing in probably less than 2 years.
There's also a tax increment financing district around the area
There you
as
go,
well.
so now you got a TIF.
So that increase in tax revenue for that district stays within that district. So the difference between what's currently being taxes and the increased taxes for a set time of time, that money goes back into the district to pay for those infrastructure upgrades.
That's what, I'm just saying, there's lots of financing options that are out there that we could pay to make this work.
When you say we,
mean,
I'm
the
sorry,
town.
Roger, we're forgetting you.
No, you're not forgetting me. I've been quiet. I just want to listen to what everyone was saying. But before we go off on another area, so Tom, are you saying that, okay, so if we sell those properties, we can't keep the equity because it has to be distributed back to the original homeowner?
Within,
Or can we hold on to that money, use it in an account to fund, and then once we start getting the money back after the North Carver Water District is up and running, we can then pay out to the people where that money originally was, earmarked for?
Yeah, any excess equity must be returned to the former owners within 60 days. So you don't even get to arbitrage it and just hold on to it for a while and try to generate some interest off
Yeah,
of it.
no.
So within 60 days, you got to give that money back. It also requires the town to hire a real estate agent in order to market those properties as well.
You gotta pay the
Well,
fees.
we will have it, we would do that with Century 21.
Requires municipalities to close, that choose to sell foreclosed properties to enlist a real estate agent for at least 1 year before being allowed to sell the property to public auction, and require the auction bids to be at least 2/3 the appraised value in order to be accepted. So the Massachusetts Municipal Association wasn't keen on that, but that's what the law is.
I'm just saying there's other ways that we could finance making this work based upon the tax dollars that'll come out of that development. And Tom's right, there's TIFs, there's other ways around that we could figure it out to do it ourselves and more than make the money back in probably less than 2 years.
All right, let's go back. There are two mentions in here, both number 2C and 3A, about a fall town meeting. Are we having one?
There is proposed to be a fall town meeting in September, largely for the purpose of adopting a pilot agreement. Actually, it's called a payment plan. People call them pilots, payment in lieu of taxes, but people are paying their taxes. It's just a flatter schedule for those folks. So there would likely be a fall town meeting for a pilot agreement for Cranberry Point, because there's revenue in it for the town, and it makes sense for the town. And because of the machinations of Massachusetts fiscal law, it has to be done this year.
That's
So-
That's the
Cranberry Point
storage.
battery storage.
Battery. Okay.
So with that in mind, that we might have an annual town meeting, the town administrator approached me. We had a joint meeting of the planning board and the select board to talk about bringing an MBTA zoning bylaw to a fall town meeting. So currently, a prospective fall town meeting in September might include a pilot agreement for Cranberry Point energy storage and a vote on an MBTA zoning bylaw.
Okay.
That's good.
What about changing the zoning bylaws for the Green Business Park to get rid of the earth removal thing, to make it allowable?
That's certainly something you could propose. But I think that the grayness of that language is, that's one thing you want to talk to Kathleen about, and how they would represent something like that.
Okay.
And of course, as we talked about before, in a previous town meeting where someone got into the weeds about who's allowed to propose an article for a town meeting, the RDA might have proposed an article as a petitioned article with 10 taxpayer signatures,
Well, we cleared that up, didn't we?
in order to ensure that it's on the ballot, that it's on the warrant.
Okay.
So yeah, you could
We
propose
could
something.
take that up with Kathleen too.
Well, yeah, and it's a gray area, as Tom said, and we all agree. Maybe it's not that we just allow it in the Green Business Park, but we define what primary use is.
That, I would say that would be the thing.
You got a great lawyer in Kathleen O'Donnell.
Kathleen, yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
All right, so September's not far away. Do we know when articles have to be in, if they're going to be
Oh, yeah.
put on this?
As always, earlier the better for a petitioned article.
Yeah, I know April is December, so that's 4
So
months.
usually with the special town meeting or the annual town meeting, there are set time frames. But in this case, while the warrant is open, you have those petitions, whether it's Jellystone asking to change their zoning so they can sell beer and wine in their little shop, or any other zoning changes that you might propose. Best to get them petitioned. And the difference between a special town meeting and an annual town meeting is, for an annual town meeting, it has to be the signatures of 10 taxpayers.
Oh, there's 100.
For a special town meeting, it's 100.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you need to figure out what the zoning is and petition 100 folks, or ask the select board if they would submit an article, or ask the planning board if they would submit an article.
Is it still, I'm just thinking about the meeting itself, is it still the same number of people to create a quorum?
Okay.
Okay.
Still
Was it
10.
107? 70? What was it, 70? Something like
I'd
that?
have to look.
No, it's like 75.
It's based
Or
on,
it was 150, I think.
yeah.
So to that effect, back to the MBTA zoning bylaw, so the planning board will be holding hearings for zoning changes. We are currently discussing with our Massachusetts Housing Partnership the scope of services for them to assist us in developing an MPDA zoning bylaw. I'll be at that meeting tomorrow afternoon about 2:30 or so. So we'll have our consultant on board to help us develop the zoning bylaw, which will take place, and then we'll have the hearings required for that. I anticipate that the planning board's likely going to meet at least 3 times in August in order to, have a bylaw to put something together. And we're looking at, what I've suggested is, there's nothing new under the sun for MBTA zoning bylaws, because we're so far into the end of this process. There's a lot of things out there already. There's a model bylaw for the town. So we'll be talking with our consultant about, what's that best strategy of action to look at that model bylaw and amend it for Carver and to figure out those areas. And it's going to be, a fairly compressed process to do that sort of work over, essentially 60 days.
So, can I ask a question?
Please, with the chair's permission.
Go for it.
Can I?
Go ahead.
Yes, Roger, go.
Yeah.
Okay, so while I'm hearing all this talk back and forth about, the urban renewal project, the areas that's being held, and with the MBTA, spitballing, is there any way we could handshake with George and bring him in towards the MBTA project and utilize, does it have to be a business park? Could it be rezoned for homes and use the MBTA, come in there and build the homes on that property? This way it moves along George selling the property. And once we bring in a big boy like the MBTA and the state funding, would they help us get push through these water issues? So that this way the job can just get done. We can make, with easy access to Route 44 right there, that'd be a great piece of land to be used for commuters in and out to jump right on 44 and beat the train station in minutes.
Yeah.
So, have we looked down that road?
Yeah, so a couple of things. The MBTA zoning only creates zoning. It doesn't create any infrastructure. It creates zoning that allows the developer to build 15 dwelling units per acre. All it does is provide zoning. There's no funding for infrastructure for something like that. Secondly, when you look at environmental cleanup, there is a scale for how clean a piece of property has to be. If you're going to take a piece of property and clean it up and put a parking lot on it and cap it, that has a pretty low threshold for cleanup. If you're going to look at a piece of property and say, we're going to put kids in a playground on it, then it's a much steeper level of cleanup that has to go for something like that. The town needs economic development, the town needs housing, and there are areas for both. What I have proposed in the zoning that I've looked at is look at the areas south of Carver. The areas that are already have previously disturbed areas, so we're not cutting down trees or not mining a ton of sand, to look at the areas for the MBTA zoning. So, while an industrial park could become housing, to what extent is the developer willing to do something like that, and to what extent does it make sense for the developer to try to provide that level of certainty about the soils and materials are on the site. I'm fairly confident, based on the reports I've seen from Bowler and other folks like that the PFAS area has been capped. But if you look at, and I've said this before, if 175 towns have to create zoning for the MBTA, and only 100 of them do it, there are 100 towns that someone might look at creating housing in, that have water, that have infrastructure, that don't have anything looming over them. Developers are going to go to those places first. And the zoning doesn't create housing, it creates an opportunity. It prints the menu for the developer to say what I want to do with this piece of property. So create the MBTA zoning bylaw, get it passed at town meeting to keep us in the game for various grants and things like that. And more importantly, because there's a need for housing in Carver. There's a need for housing in the Commonwealth. Economic development groups from all over the Commonwealth have said there's not enough housing here. We're going to go the way of other places where the cost of housing was so much that the high-tech, smarty-pants, high-paying firms that come here don't have a place to put their employees. They're going to wind up in Austin. They're going to wind up in Utah. They're going to wind up in places where people can afford to have housing at. I've made the parallel to Detroit before. That back in the old days when Detroit and the big three were going gangbusters, everybody had a house, everybody had a boat, every mom stayed home. It was great. because that was the American dream. When that core of the industry went away, it didn't just affect Detroit, it called it out to create the Rust Belt, where economic development all of a sudden wasn't the gold glory days, it was like the Middle Ages, it was the Dark Ages. If the core of your economic machine is impacted by the high cost of housing in the region, that core will gradually disintegrate, and you will not have the economic engine that makes Carver an attractive place for people to live and drive somewhere else to work, because the impact on services and values around the region will make this less than a glorious place to live than it is today. That's my soapbox for preaching on Sundays.
So Roger, let me just add to that what he's just said. You talked about the George's area. What about across the street, the one that now has 6 acres? Would that not be part of?
Could be.
Could be.
Could be. But that's the discussion we'll be having about what is that appropriate area. And I've talked to Constantine, and I've looked at his plans for apartments there, and I've talked about his concerns about the well and things like that. But the zoning is the zoning. It doesn't create anything. It just creates an opportunity. It creates zoning.
I think the other thing we can't forget
And
here
that's
is,
what I was looking at, was that opportunity, and I understand what you're saying. I was just thinking, since George already has so much invested, MBTA has to happen, or it's going to happen somewhere. I just looked at it and said, since we're trying to facilitate getting this done, what can we do that would help that happen, kill 2 birds with 1 stone, make George happy, and maybe somehow, when the developer looked at it, would help us get the water department repaired quicker or sooner.
Yeah,
But I agree
yeah.
with Jim, we've just got to get this project done, get something on the books, or get something started so that it takes a bigger life than where it's sitting now and going dormant.
Yeah, if you had a housing developer and a commercial developer both wanting to create, infrastructure, then economies of scale make it cheaper for everybody to do that. But
Right.
you've got to have that handshake, as you pointed out, to happen there. The zoning has to be in place, the water system has to be in place, and economies of scale make things cheaper.
Yeah, and my opinion is that property, the Green Business Park, is too important for commercial development in the town.
That's right, yeah.
To give up, because
To
we're
give
not
it
gonna
up for
find
housing.
something else like
also
it.
commercial development doesn't tax the town. Excuse me, I just said that.
And,
So I just
and
have,
also,
Go ahead.
I mean, the rules of it being a green development park in and of itself are important in maintaining it as being as conservation conscious as possible and energy efficient as possible. So I would hate to give that up.
so I have a question for Tom. Tom, way back when you were starting all this, you had said to the planning board, you had a recommendation, and you recommended an overlay district for this MBTA at North Carver, which sounded really good. That was Shaw's, and across the street was Roby's. What happened to that?
The planning board didn't want to submit an article. So that's where we're going to pick up the discussion about the MBTA zoning bylaw, is where would it be? And what would the zoning be that goes with it? So the first thing the state wants to know is, where are you going to put it at?
Yeah,
If you decide to create an MBTA zoning bylaw in the Great Cedar Swamp, they're going to say, no,
right.
that's not buildable. So they want to know, where you're going to put it at, is it buildable? And so the areas I've looked at from a rudimentary GIS, showing upland areas and buffers and things like that, shows that, yeah, you can get those 235 units on essentially 6 or 7 parcels just south of Route 44. And we'll confirm that with the state, and the folks that we'll be looking at have a better GIS than we do, and they'll be.
When you say south, south means from Main Street?
South of
down?
Route 44.
Oh,
On Main Street.
Yeah.
on Main Street?
Yes, so Shaw's, CVS, Roby,
Constantine,
that's north of Route 44.
okay, so you're not looking at that, no?
Well, that can be part of the discussion as folks move forward on.
I would think so, yeah.
But once again, my whole goal has been to create zoning on previously disturbed properties. So we don't lose a tree, we don't lose a stick, and because there's so much wetlands up there, anyhow, how much net usable area is there?
So
If there's in fact 6 acres on Constantine's property that they could use for development, You know, 6 times 15 is what, 90?
Yeah.
So there's 90 of 235 units. So
Right.
you still gotta have enough area for another,
Right.
How much acreage is required for the 235 units?
15 dwelling units per acre.
Okay, all right. Wow.
15 so supposing with the apartments,
Well, that's a unit,
so you have to have 15
15 per acre.
per acre?
5, 15, it's like 16, 18 acres?
Yeah.
If it was all flat and perfect. But
Right. Okay.
you have room in there for roads and parking and all that sort of
Right.
stuff as well.
So the Roby's and the Cross Street, they're already on water. And Roby's has already paid the betterment for water. Would that make us a 44, what's that next one, C? If you have water, the state helps you?
Oh, 40R?
Yeah,
Yeah, so we don't have the infrastructure for a 40R development.
at this point,
Correct.
but we could, if North Carver Water District, North Carver Water was going.
If it was functional
It
and
would
someone,
be-
could-
it
and
would
someone
be-
sent a letter that says, we, the town of Carver, have the ability to provide water
Yeah.
and sewer
Yeah,
for 235 units of housing,
yeah,
then you could say, yeah, you could do a 40R.
wow, look at that. It's like a puzzle now, it's starting to come together, except there's a void someplace that I don't know
And
where
that,
it
and that void is infrastructure. You don't have water
No.
or sewer to support
As
235
Tom
units.
said, we're just creating the zoning district.
That's-
No one's gonna be knocking at the door to
No.
build tomorrow.
Yeah, but it's not a swamp area, it's good area. It's good area.
It's probably the 99th best area to build in, based on the other 100 towns that have got, water infrastructure, roads, closer to transit.
Oh, another thing I want to share with you, we talked about Kathleen, because she lives in Milton, right? And they spent, well, you know the story, because
Yeah.
you even told the planning board not to waste your money, 250,000 on, on legal fees. Well, of course, they did, and got it all ready, and town meeting, rejected it, I believe, that's how that went. And it went to court, and it lost, and of course, she also told me that they had $1 million all written out for Massachusetts grants. And they were just all pulled back. And she also said that, so I said to her, oh, forget the state, we'll just go federal. And she said, Joanna, the government has not allowed any money coming into the state of Massachusetts. They're holding up school money.
So to segue to 2D, ideas for the 80,000 economic development grant.
Yes, there we go.
So this is a letter, award letter for the economic development grant, and attached to it is the scope of services from SERPID.
Very good.
So the short story is, we have an economic development grant from SERPID. They're currently in the data collecting phase. It talks about how the process will go forward with things like that. In the cover letter from Maura Healy, dated October 10th, 2024, it says, if the project is located in an MBTA community, please note that a contract will not be executed if the community is non-compliant with Section 3A of Massachusetts General Law. So we are compliant until 12/31/25. So we have a grant. They're currently in the process of data collection and putting together sort of a public outreach sort of system for that. And we can proceed with that, and we can expect to have those monies in hand to move that along up until 12/31/25, unless the town votes for the MBTA zoning bylaw. This grant, this proposal for the economic development is essentially looking to get this work done and probably complete it in June of 2026. So we may get started, but we may not be able to finish, depending on the outcome of the
Oh my God.
MBTA zoning bylaw.
Oh boy, we got all these issues
So
going.
if we were to start now, would we get some of the money?
Yeah, we've already started.
And we have some of the money?
Yeah, so it's a grant through SERPID. So SERPID's doing the data collection for us, doing the outreach and stuff like that. So we had a kickoff meeting with Joe Roche, myself, the town administrator, and we'll have, we're due for our next quarterly update here probably in the next week or so with SERPID to see where we're at with that. But we'll move forward with this process to look at what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages Carver has from an economic development perspective? How do we identify them? What do we do to address them in moving forward with this economic development grant? And we can party on right up until 12/30/2025, in the absence of the MBTA zoning bylaw.
So if they do all this data collection and said, you know what, primarily water, right?
You could save 80 grand, is what you're telling us, Joanne?
Yeah.
So that's where we're at.
Wow.
We got options. And,
Well, we want to stay, work with you and town administrator, and we'll be working, I'm sure. We have some good people on our team here. And Jim has a lot of background, and Jim can teach us, right, Jim?
How to do real estate?
No, all these programs like
I can
TIFs and
help you out
TIPs
with lots of stuff.
and TIFs and TAPs and all those other
I've been doing
things.
this for over 30 years.
he knows the art of the deal, huh?
The art of the deal, let's hope it's legit.
Or the art of killing a deal. Which is what we're doing, frankly.
Yeah.
We're
Right.
killing a deal.
Yes, you two could run a casino into the ground, perhaps.
I'm looking at
I
two
wouldn't.
potential people,
Seems
George and the
pretty
guy
good.
in Constantine.
All right,
Anyway.
Anything else for me this evening?
Have you ever talked, who's the guy that owns Roby's now? Because Roby's, even though they kept the name and everything, it's
I
a
don't know.
different guy.
know.
Never approached you about anything?
Yeah, who would?
He's talking about putting up a casino.
What? What? Don't laugh, we had,
Yeah.
remember Middleborough was putting up that casino? Oh my
I
God.
shouldn't have said anything, I was just joking.
All right.
No, it wasn't a
Okay.
joke then.
Anything else I can do for you this evening?
I have just one very quick question, going back to the house sale money, if we were to sell things. Let's say that we sell property for $100,000, that's owed $20,000 in back taxes. Carver gets the $20,000 as the back taxes, and that goes into the general fund.
To cover the fees and the taxes
Okay, and then the $80,000 goes to the owner.
within 60 days.
All right, so there is no excess that could be earmarked for North Carver, it just...
Yeah, that tool's just gone.
Okay, okay.
Unless, but Kathleen says it depends on how they acquired the property. So that's where I'm going next. to
In
talk.
what sense?
Well, if it's not through land court, maybe maybe some inheritance or something like that, or they could have willed it to the town or whatever. You know, different
Okay.
ways.
Usually a transfer of property has something to do with you have to pay the back taxes on it.
Well, they go to land court and they decide how they're gonna resolve it.
No,
If it doesn't get
usually that's-
resolved,
You know,
Yeah.
you own if there's a mortgage holder, you owe them first.
oh, you know
Then
the
you owe
bank's
the
gonna
town.
grab it.
Yeah, I'm just saying, then you owe the town whatever money
The
they're.
bank pays the taxes, so they don't lose it. That's
The
what,
bank doesn't pay my taxes.
if
I pay my
if you're
taxes.
in the red and you have a house and a mortgage and you owe taxes, they don't want the mortgage company does not want the
Anyway,
town.
I don't want anybody to lose their bet about how short this meeting was gonna be.
4 minutes, man, we got 4 minutes. I got $1 riding on this.
All right,
But this gentleman has been sitting here very calmly and,
No questions.
oh, I thought you were here to say something.
Nope.
people have meetings.
I'm glad we got somebody to listen to us.
The other thing I would suggest is when you're speaking to people and you're talking about George, if you identify him as the developer
Okay.
and maybe his last name,
Okay.
and you say Tom, and you have to say his last name, so that people watching the meetings from
Okay.
home
Okay.
can follow along.
That's fair
what you're
enough.
talking about.
Yeah.
That's a fair deal. We like it.
Very informative.
That's the only thing I have to
Good
suggest.
contribution. Thanks for coming. Can't tell us that.
Okay.
What is this 34? Ortiz, oh,
David
Ortiz,
Ortiz.
David
Big
Ortiz.
Pappy.
Come on, man, we got 3 minutes.
Poppy.
I got $1 riding on
I
this
have, I have my Paw Sox shirt on because I knew who I was gonna see tonight.
You going to a baseball game?
I got a Sox fan here, Dave, I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah.
but,
Oh, really?
Wore Sox gear at Yankee Stadium every day of his professional life.
Oh, well, I went to a lot of games. I went to a lot of Red Sox games at Yankee Stadium when I lived and worked there, and I
Oh,
always
you
wore my
were-
colors.
If you Google, "you want a piece of me," it has his name right next to it, okay?
I'll just 2 seconds here, and I know I'm pushing this, but the chant of the Yankees suck that we say when they have like 26 world championships, I think we need to kind of stop that. And I'm a lifelong Red Sox fan, don't get me wrong,
So
but the
am I.
whole idea of the Yankees don't suck.
There is a great Saturday Night Live weekend update that Derek Jeter is on with, I think, Seth Meyers about Yankee suck. And it is, if you can find it, it is epically good.
Oh, I bet.
All right.
Now, we can definitely say that the Giants.
What's the name
well,
of
course,
it
they
on
beat us twice, but
Netflix?
No, Saturday Night Live.
Oh,
It's probably
Saturday
on
Night Live?
YouTube somewhere.
Yes, we can update.
You'd be surprised at the amount of content is not on YouTube because NBC wants to monetize it.
Didn't the Yankees have to spend way more than everyone else though?
What does it
Well,
matter?
they
They
do.
keep beating us.
Except
Yeah,
for
but
the
it's a little,
Dodgers.
it's a little bit of blood money title for the most of them.
Look, I don't.
You can't get a trophy on your wall without cutting somebody's head off. That's
You know,
what-
when was the last time the Pittsburgh Pirates won a World Series? Because they don't spend any money.
No.
It's just the nature of the beast.
They just
man.
said because we're broken.
Clementi, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Wasn't it back
Yeah.
when he was playing?
I thought it was like Willie Stargell and those guys in the 70s. Didn't they win?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Can we move this
And they're
Yeah,
cheaper
okay.
than they can.
Yeah.
All right, good night,
Oh,
guys.
he's gonna
Good
go.
night.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Tom,
Well,
as
thanks,
usual,
Tom.
thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, the treasurer's report, real quick. Bottom line, June 30th, 2025, checking account, $278.99. In our RDA account, we have $48,453.37. And the account for the urban renewal plan is $1,280.66. Susan Hannon, she cashed, I looked at it, I said, did I get the wrong date? But those two other dates, because I had given her another check, and she just grabbed, and held one and grabbed the others, I guess. But if we could have a motion to accept the treasurer's report, I would,
I motion to accept. There you go.
second.
Second.
Discuss, further discussion, being none, all those in favor, vote
Aye.
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 Savory says aye.
Yes, I do.
Joanna Layton says aye. It's unanimous. Pass, thank you. Next thing is, it's me, Ethics Online. I hope each and every one of you have done it, I don't know. But that keeps coming up. Jill keeps asking, did you do it, did you do it?
I cannot tell a lie. I have not done it yet.
You have not.
It's
Neither have.
ethics, so I can't lie.
It's, yeah, there you go. But anyway, we gotta get that done, and Jill says to me that when you log in, it captures and it knows, and so the payroll lady or whoever is in charge of this, she's gonna know that you
Fair
took
enough.
it. So apparently she knows we haven't taken it.
Before our
because-
next meeting, I'll get it done.
All right, so, me too. So Savory, you good? You've done
I
it?
did it for conservation, I'm sure.
Roger, you good?
But
You've done
who
it?
can tell me for sure?
I'm all completed.
Okay, great.
Who can
Super.
tell me if I did? I think I did it when because I heard.
Well, I
about
can
it.
ask Jill, ask
If you did it for
Jill.
conservation,
Yeah.
it'll work for this.
Yeah, it's once.
All you have to
It's
do is-
once.
You only have to do it once, every
I
2
don't.
years.
All right, next meeting.
All right, here we go.
Wait.
The next
I've
meeting,
already lost my dollar. We're 1 minute past that.
well, you talked about baseball, that's your problem.
Well, hold on a second. We member notes. You got to speak about mandatory training. I want to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to ask if there's something we want to do as a committee, the RDA, to get something on the ballot in September. Do we want to proceed with trying to change the zoning law to get rid of that? Make earth removal an acceptable situation in the Green Business Park, so George can move his mountain and get going.
I think, that's a great idea, and yes, and hold on. Kathleen has also written a letter. When we were going around and around, she wrote a letter. And she also, like Susan Murphy, referenced that section. There's something wrong with the punctuation and the way that's in its primary use and something else. I forgot what it is, but it's primary use.
If the N in that chart turns to a Y,
You think that's the solve?
I do. It allows earth removal.
So,
It doesn't matter about those other sections
It
where
makes them moot.
well, we're gonna get a legal opinion, aren't you?
Yeah, but I think that we should talk to Kathleen about it. I think.
We
that
think
if
we should.
I agree with you, though. I think we should.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to get that.
Oh, that's
agree.
number one, that's the
Yeah,
first.
no, I agree. Sign me up.
so a question on that, can we make it so that the earth being removed doesn't leave town, can be used somewhere else for town use? So this way nobody profits from it for the town?
Well,
I
what
think-
you really want in the end is that the developer's looking for money so he can build his development, which will profit the town long-term. I think, if I understand things correctly, he's looking to offset his costs that go involved with building this development, short term. So selling the dirt is a way to offset your costs.
And he would also like that parcel that's in the loop road to be pad ready. Makes it easier for him to sell without having someone come in and saying, and figuring out that they have to move that mountain. If he can get it out of here, then that's gonna move the process along, I think, quite a bit.
I agree.
You mean
But
the,
will the people that oppose us and this project have an opposition to that, and will that hold us up there? Or do you think, just leave it alone, let's go for it the way you guys are suggesting? You don't want to open that up to discussion with somebody else?
I think we take a shot. You know, like doing nothing is, we're gonna be sitting here a year from now saying, having this
We've
same
been
conversation.
not doing anything for a long time. I agree with you. I think it's time to like, put it on the record and say we support this development.
Yep, and here's why.
And here's why, but also it's a smart way to develop. You're putting commercial real estate in a place that's for commercial real estate. I mean, it's a great place to put it across from 44. It works for everything, and it makes the town a lot of money without taking a lot of services.
And it was kind of an arbitrary decision to not allow it in the first place. There was no real thinking behind it. So I just think that, you know, we as, I think you should talk to Kathleen.
oh, definitely.
Have
Find
somebody
out
draft it and
What
off we
she,
go.
what she thinks we should do to eliminate the hold that George McLaughlin and Route 44 has on being able to continue with making that area pad ready.
That's correct, it will do that.
Okay.
And- But the other thing we're going to also do is we're gonna make sure we get the right language that allows us, the RDA, to put articles in and to stand up at, because we went through this already with the planning board member, I can't remember his name. We had that, but there was something written up by the Attorney General or what, but we just gotta get that resolved.
That was a different situation.
No, it doesn't matter, it's just language period saying
Well,
you can't do anything by submitting any, he just mentioned, if it's a special town meeting, you would have to, if in a petition article, you have to have 100 signatures, you only have to have 10 if it's otherwise. But if the right language says, yes, RDA, you have your own language, you have your own laws, you have the power, you can speak, or you can put articles, we just need to.
I will volunteer to talk to you with the attorney
Okay,
and figure it out.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think because we're quasi state and not 100% a local agency, that.
can we have 3 people talk to of us, is that our, or we only can have 2? Talking to, when we go and
Oh,
talk.
no, 3 is a quorum, so it can
Oh,
only
we
be
can't
2.
do 3, oh, okay, all right.
Right. Okay, that's all I
If
wanted
you
to
guys
say.
wanna do it, that's fine. I mean, I'm just saying I'm offering to help, that's all.
Well, we don't, because 3 makes a
I-
quorum, that's my problem.
Right, I would defer to Jim because of his
Yeah.
expertise
So we-
in this.
Can you talk during the day, though?
Yeah,
You can?
via conference. I mean, I
You
don't,
can?
I can't necessarily drive back here, but
No,
I
we
can
don't
do
want,
conference calls and
they're all
stuff.
conference calls.
I can,
Yeah.
more than happy to do that.
Okay, all right.
That's why I couldn't make
Let's see
the
what
road.
Kathleen says, but we gotta move on this.
Yeah,
There you go.
definitely. I'll be talking to her
I'm in.
tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to get that off the books.
Yeah.
I said, yay, Jim.
Oh,
Oh,
Do we want her on a Zoom call? And then we could
It's
have a
up to her.
meeting. We could have a meeting with a Zoom call, you wanna do that?
I think I would ask her the best.
yeah,
form.
yeah, talk to her first.
Talk to her and then we'll go.
Tell her
from
what
there.
we-
But I am
tell-
more than willing to do a Zoom call or just a conference call or whatever you guys
Okay.
want to do.
Tell her we're having a special town meeting in September. We need 100 signatures. We want to change the bylaw so that Route 44 can
Move the dirt.
expedite their plans. What would she suggest? And you can tell her that what we're suggesting is just changing the chart so that earth removal is an allowable function in the Green Business Park.
Okay,
That would seem to me to be the easiest way to do it.
okay. And the rate, if the RDA has the opportunity to speak or submit articles.
Yes, as a town entity. If not, we have to go the 100 signature route. but-
Right, exactly.
We can stand in front of Shaw's with cupcakes.
I was gonna say, Shaw's and Dunkin' Donuts are the two best places, because that's where I got the signatures to run for office.
Yeah, that's right. But 100 of them? You only got 54 for when you were running, but now you get.
Anyway,
All right, next meeting, please.
August 12th?
We're into August now, guys.
God, it's terrible.
Yeah, August 12th.
August 12th, what does that look like for you, Saban?
I'm good.
How about you, Jim?
I am too. No, actually, I already have it in here, because I put it in.
Okay, how
The
about
second
Roger,
Tuesday.
so you're recommending the 12th, you're good?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so let's do it, RDA, I need a vote. Next meeting, August
August
12th.
12th.
A vote by Jim,
I, Saban says aye.
seconded.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye,
Joanna
aye.
says aye. We're-
Aye, Captain.
We're all in favor of it, 6:30 on the 12th to August.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I
Good.
second.
Second.
All right, need a time, 7:38 adjournment, thank you.
8 minutes over.